Joining us now, Scott Taylor, House of Delegates member, Republican, and he's also a candidate for Congress from the 2nd District. That'll be decided in a June 14th primary. 3 candidates running. Current 4th District Congressman Randy Forbes decided to go into the 2nd District. Doesn't live in the district, but you don't have to by law. And also Attorney Pat Cardwell from Virginia Beach and Scott Taylor. I've got this race right now, a toss-up. I've got Taylor ahead in the beach, and I've got Forbes ahead on the peninsula, but I think it's going to be very, very close. Scott, good to have you with us, man.
John, always a pleasure to be with you and the listeners, especially early.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you getting up. This is going to be a very tough race. I think it's going to be very close. I think you're going to win the beach, and I think you're going to win the beach big. I think Forbes right now, my take, is ahead on the peninsula and some other areas. That's why I think right now it's a toss-up. Let's get your take on where you think that race is now.
Well, John, I think your analysis is good, man. I think it's really good. I think we're up really high in the beach. I'm from the Eastern Shore on the Delmarva Peninsula, up on the Maryland side, but of course we've got friends and family all up and down. So I think we're going to do really, really well on the shore too. The peninsula, I'm not as well known up there, so we're certainly up there and talking to people, and people are really liking what they're hearing, and we're seeing that the undecideds up there are swinging to us pretty heavily. So I think we're going to do really well. I know that Mr. Forbes started the race with a lot more money, as you know. The money that we raised from the state campaign, I can't transfer, so we had to start over again. But we're raising really good money, and I think you're going to be pretty surprised at some of the big donors that we have, big power players in the area who are supporting our campaign. And like I said, we're up really high in the beach, and we're working on the peninsula and introducing myself to those folks, and I think we're going to do really well in this race.
I think it's going to be really close, and we'll see how it plays out. I know we're trying to schedule a debate on May 31st. The details of that not quite worked out. We've got some issues over who the moderators are. Other than me, there's no issue with me. There's issue with some of the others. Hopefully that'll get worked out.
I hope so too, John, because like I said to you personally, and I say it publicly, I'll love to debate Forbes anywhere, anytime. But we're not gonna put ourselves in a position to where it's basically a Forbes controlled debate. You're a neutral guy. You're not publicly endorsing anybody. I trust you. I'd be happy to debate him tomorrow or today with you moderating it.
Well, the issue, so our listeners know that we have, is we proposed a joint debate between the John Fredericks Radio Network. Our affiliates agreed to pick it up, and the Republican Professionals Network, RPM, run by Bruce Meyer. Bruce is a good guy, good organization. We got a date set, May 31st, noon to 1:30, WNTW AM 820 on the peninsula and AM 1650 here in Hampton Roads and the Shore. Agreed to pick it up, as did one of the stations on the Eastern Shore, so we had complete coverage. And the issue became that Bruce Meyer, that runs the Republican Professionals Network, demanded that he be one of the moderators. The problem is Bruce has publicly endorsed Randy. He's holding a fundraiser for him. So is his wife, Connie. Wonderful people, and so
he's a good guy. They're a good group. There's some great people that I respect there for sure. We have we're all Republicans. I respect Randy. I respect his service. We have a family disagreement. Families disagree sometimes very profoundly. I happen to think it's absolutely wrong when with the congressman who was calling around in the 3rd district, calling around the 7th district before he abandoned the 4th district to run into the 2nd district. I just think he should have stood up and fought for his people in the 4th district.
Well, I think as a 4th district resident, I would have preferred that. But look,
you guys are in the same fight for Republican representation, and the power that you have given him and elevated him to. This is when you need it the most. He's the only one who can win that race, and we elevate people in leadership to protect us and to fight for us, and that's not what's happening here. It's more self-serving, and I disagree with that.
I think,
even though we are family,
if he stayed in the district, he wins. Although I understand how much tougher it would have been, but you got to stay and fight.
I can tell you right now. I told Congressman Riddle this as well. That the path of least resistance for Congressman Forbes to Congress is his own district. It's not my district.
That's what I think. It is what it is. You guys have a competitive race. So our debate now, just so our audience knows, I went to Meyer and I said, look, 2 of the 3 candidates are not going to participate in this debate for Taylor or Cardwell as long as you're one of the moderators. So just pick somebody else on your RPN board, find somebody that can moderate, or just do it with me. because they're not going to debate and have a moderator, somebody that's made a public endorsement of one of the candidates and is holding a fundraiser for him. You just don't do that, nor would my affiliates want to pick that up, because then it becomes a shill, and you just can't have that. So we'll see how it plays out. Scott, let's get to some issues right now, head on. I want to talk about trade. I'm against these trade deals, as you know, so total disclosure. I was against NAFTA, the Korean trade deal, TPP. These cost American workers jobs. Congressman Forbes on our show, first he was in favor of it. Then he said he would amend it. Well, they can't be amended. Now he says he would not be in favor of TPP because he doesn't want to give power to this president. However, the loophole is if there was some other president, then his position might change. Tell our audience right now, if you're in Congress and TPP comes up either in January or the following December, what are you going to do?
Well, the answer is no, and I think that it's disingenuous of the congressman, to be honest with you. I mean, he voted for fast-track authority for this president. So, I mean, I understand that perhaps the mood of the country, and perhaps, because Donald Trump has really brought it to the forefront that it doesn't sound good for him to say that, and he could say, I could switch my position, I could give it to authority to another president. But he already voted to give fast-track authority to this president under the TPA, if you will. And then he voted against the TAA, which would say, all right, you've given fast-track authority to the president, and now he does it, and then jobs get lost, and then you're not voting for retraining people who have lost their jobs. So I think that's wrong. I'm actually with Congressman Whitman, who basically was like, I think that giving a fast-track authority to our highest legislative body, and it doesn't give them enough influence over the far-reaching and consequential deal. Look, I think this is important, and you see this, and this is why everybody doesn't like Congress, or not everyone, but most people don't right now, because they act as though they are witnesses to what's going on right now and not active participants. I mean, if you give this fast-track authority to the president, then you have this closed-door session where it's against democracy, which should be open, and the Congress should have a hand in it. And then, therefore, the people have a hand in it because that's their representatives. I would vote against it. And, NAFTA has a 20-year legacy. So you see what's right and what's wrong there. So just to do the same thing that you did at NAFTA or something similar there is obviously not the smart thing. It benefits some people, but it puts downward pressure on wages, and it exacerbates America's income gap. And that's a huge problem, and it's getting worse and worse. So I think there are some positive things with trade. I do believe that for sure, but it's got to be in a way that helps America. I mean, the TPP allows for foreign state-owned enterprises to undermine small businesses. I mean, they have this, obviously state-owned companies can have advantages or give themselves advantages against, folks that are just in the free market. They take out some of the Buy American clauses in there. I mean, there's no enforcement protection for currency manipulation for some countries that are in this deal. And, it also lets foreign corporations bypass U.S. law that are trying to protect our folks and our regulations, safeguards to protect America and their families and their jobs. They can use the TTP and some of the to go into international court to undermine U.S. law. So I think Congress is wrong, and one of the things that you've seen, not just with trade, but other things as well too, you've seen an abdication of duty by Congress and oversight to where you have what we're supposed to have in the government and checks and balances, of course, and a lot of congressional oversight. But in my opinion, and this has happened in a couple of decades, it's more than just President Barack Obama or this Congress that's there right now, but certainly a couple of decades. You've had this abdication of responsibility and duty to the executive branch, so therefore you have a much more powerful executive branch that doesn't have the oversight protection. And what Congressman Forbes did was vote to give him more authority under this. And I just think that's wrong. I think that Congress has got to get some level of its responsibility and oversight back so that the American people, via the representatives, have oversight over the executive branch, and that the executive branch doesn't just render Congress basically useless by going around them.
Well, look, the results of NAFTA are in, and I've said this on the radio many times. Back in the 90s, there were 3 Republicans opposed to NAFTA, me, Pat Buchanan, and Donald Trump. We were right. NAFTA has cost the United States 850,000 good jobs gone, 25,000 manufacturing companies gone, and now we want to do NAFTA on steroids with TPP. look, when I get an answer like I got from Congressman Forbes the other day, which basically was, I'm opposed to TPP because I don't want to give this president that power.
But yet he voted for fast track authority for the president.
Exactly.
Right?
So
how does that make sense?
Now, it's fine if you say you change your mind. I mean, that's fine. That's legitimate. But he didn't say that. The other thing is, the loophole there is if the president's change, then his position on TPP can change, right? Because he said, I'm against TPP right now because I don't want to give this president that power. So then if there was a different president, would that change his position? And this is the kind of doublespeak that is driving people nuts in this
John,
country.
Look, I know that the president has negotiated trade deals and throughout history, but the thing is, Congress has got to have an active role, and therefore the people have an active role in what's going on. And like you said, NAFTA's results are in. There's some benefits certainly to a few, but there's some devastating results to the American worker. So we need our representatives to be able to have active, transparent, and open oversight over these things. That's part of their job for us.
No question about it. Delegate Taylor, Randy Forbes says, look, the best chance to keep the carriers here in Norfolk and not go to Jacksonville is to reelect me from the 2nd District. I mean, he does have an argument here. He's got the seniority. He's second in command on the House Armed Services Committee. He's second on the Judiciary Committee. I mean, he's a very powerful guy. And he's saying, look, you take me out, there's no guarantee we're not going to lose one of these carriers to Jacksonville. And if that happens, I mean, it's hundreds of millions of dollars out of the Hampton Roads economy. How do you respond to that?
I think I'm glad that you asked me that because, of course, I'm inherent these things. I think he's third. But here's the deal. Let me first preface this by saying leadership is not positional. It's attitude, it's skills, it's persuasiveness, it's be able to get things done, right? We all know who Jason Chaffetz is, right? He's been there for a few years. He's a chairman now, a chairman, not a subcommittee chairman, a chairman who has beat out much more senior people to be able to do that because he's a leader, right? So, look, the notion that one congressman is stopping the carrier, one congressman, and not that the fact that Florida hasn't invested $500 million, or that there are way more things and factors that go into that than simply one congressman saying that he's omnipotent, that he's able to stop it himself. If that logic held, if he was that powerful, then you would not be seeing thousands of layoffs and shipyard layoffs, almost, quite frankly, seems like every week in the Virginia pilot. So that notion is absolutely false. And the notion that he's going to be he's guaranteed the chairmanship is also a very false narrative. It claims a lot more credit than he's due. Mr. Forbes has passed one bill in 16 years, and that was to rename a post office. Does that sound powerful? And I don't want to undermine. I respect him. I respect his service. I respect that he does have seniority. But I just think that argument it's false, and it simply takes a little bit of Google searching to see that he was trying to be chairman before and was passed over. And part of that is because he, waded a battle into social issues that had nothing to do with protecting the damn carrier. So, and the other thing is when you look at BRAC and you look at what it takes to make sure that we don't lose assets here, and quite frankly, I think the 2nd District is positioned to gain assets, but not necessarily, not ships necessarily, because when you look at this region, we have a third less ships in the past 5 years, and why is that? Well, Mr. Forbes himself chairs the China caucus, the rising China. He's been talking about that for a while. Well, guess what happens when there's a rising China and what America does? Well, they surge resources there. And where do those resources come from, the West Coast or the East Coast? Well, if you know anything about the military, they're leaving from the West Coast because it's right there as opposed to the East Coast. So some of those things are completely out of one congressman's control. It's American grand strategy. And furthermore, if Mr. Forbes was omnipotent, was able to stop all those things from happening, which of course has not been the case, then Virginia Beach and the state would not have invested $130 million to deal with encroachment issues in Oceania and things like that. Because the reality is, John, it's not one congressman. It is a huge partnership between localities, the state, and the federal delegation, which, by the way, every one of them were opposed to moving a carrier, of course.
Delegate Taylor, we're out of time. I want to thank you for joining us. More info, go to ScottTaylorVA.com. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network.